What we basically have on the board is what you guys, the first few anyways. What we're going to be doing is we're going to, now remember this is only part A, so this is going to actually bring us up to the point where Jesus runs into the two guys that are going to, Emmaus. But we're not there yet, and that's the question sheet at the back, number 16. What we're trying to do, and it can be very confusing as the Bible study last week with Matt trying to figure out, what exactly is going on and why did this writer say this happened and this immediately happened after that in the next verse, where basically what you have is he mentions this in this verse and the next verse is a bunch happened in between. And what we're going to be doing is basically pointing out chronologically what happened after Jesus resurrected. Now you guys already talked about this part last week where Joseph of Arimathea came. These two verses connected with that was the fact that Nicodemus was there and helped him out. And then we got into, you guys were studying this part last week where the chief priests and the Pharisees, what did they go to Pilate for? Do you guys remember? In your study last week, why did they go to Pilate?
Because they wanted the tomb sealed or
yeah, they wanted it secured. Now, why were they so concerned about that? It's in that passage you guys read. You remember, Warren?
They were concerned because Jesus told them he was going to rise again in 3 days.
Right.
So they didn't want that to happen. They wanted to be sure that somebody was not retrieve the body or whatever.
That's it. If you get somebody to take that body, then of course you can spread the rumors. Well, he resurrected. Well, they're just saying, well, no, we're going to take care of that, so we want that secured. And then what we're noticing here is that, you guys were talking about this last week about who went to the tomb early Sunday morning. You guys remember that? Because I was just listening. You guys just talked about it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it.
Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James and Joanna.
And one more.
And others.
And other women. Okay. There were others there. And so that's what you guys were talking about there. Now what's interesting, let's open up our Bibles now to John chapter 20. John chapter 20. As you can tell on the board, we're going to be skipping back and forth. We'll go over to Luke, some references, cross-reference over to Mark, and so on. Now remember, in John chapter 20 and verse 1, it says, on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken from the tomb. Then she ran and came to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and said to them, they have taken away the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him. Okay, and so what's interesting here is you're going to find that just that Mary leaves. Okay, it looks like they all left, but they don't. They didn't. What's basically happening is this: is that they're all there. Mary sees the tomb, runs into Peter and John, and then something's going on with these other ladies while they're there. Okay, and their encounter. And then when they leave to talk to the apostles about what's transpired, we also read while they were there. The timeline is really tricky because when she told Peter and John, what did they do?
They ran to the tomb.
They ran immediately, okay? They ran immediately to the tomb to check things out. And when they saw things, it's almost like before they got there, there's this encounter with the other women. They come, and then they leave, and then after that, this other Mary that went to Peter and John, she goes back to the tomb, and then she has the encounter. And that's where she runs into Jesus. And so it can be a little confusing, but if you can kind of picture it like a movie, where you get these different scenes, where the ladies are there. Mary leaves. She's in Peter and John. This happens to them. Peter and John run. There's an event there. They leave. Mary comes after. Peter and John had checked things out. She has this encounter. And so it kind of helps you with the timeline. And we'll make some applications of things that we can learn as we go through these passages. Okay. So let's go to Luke chapter 24. That's where we're going to go right now. We'll slow things down and kind of pick up where you guys left off last week. So Luke chapter 24. All right. And we're going to read down 4 through 7. 4 through 7. Tony, why don't we start over with you? 4, 5, and then 6 and 7 by David.
And it happened as they were greatly perplexed about this, that behold, 2 men stood by them in shining garments. Then as they were afraid and bowed their faces to the earth, they said to them, Why do you seek the living among the dead?
He is not here, but is risen. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee, saying, The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and on the third day rise again.
Okay. And you'll notice this is, and they remembered his words. Then they returned from the tomb and told these things to the 11 and to all the rest. Okay. Now you'll notice in verse 1 of this, on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, these women came, right? And they found the stone. Well, we already read over here in John chapter 20, when the women came, and in verse 2, immediately Mary leaves and runs to Peter and John and tells them what had happened. So they're going to come. But I want you guys to see that what's happened is when she took off, they stayed there. Okay? These women stayed there, and now we're learning what had transpired. And so it says there was these 2 men stood by them in shining garments, and again they just had this conversation with them and reminded them again of what Jesus had told them prior to his death. Okay, just not a lot of application there. This is kind of like this history lesson for us right now of just learning the events and how they unfolded. Is there anything that you guys want to bring to light that's in this? Because I don't want to pass over too quickly. But again, as I was going over it this week, it just seems just a lot of information that you just want to get a picture of what transpired. Because this is the life of Jesus, his resurrection, and how it all took place. What unfolded at what time, who saw him. So we're already starting to put the pieces together of his resurrection. Okay? Then we're going to be noticing that when Peter and John came, what did they see, in the tomb? And we're going to be talking about that. Okay, so let's go back to John chapter 20. Let's go to John chapter 20. And we'll continue on the same side with the reading. We're going to go 2 through 10 of John chapter 20. And we'll just take 2 verses apiece. This is the encounter with Peter and John, okay? Verse 1 said, On the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early while it was still dark and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. Now, Brian. Verse 2 and 3. And we'll go down to verse 10, guys. Zigzag.
Then she ran and came to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and said to them, They have taken away the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him. Peter therefore went out, and the other disciple, and were going to the tomb.
Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strip of linen lying there, but did not go in.
Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb, and he saw the linen clothes lying there, and the handkerchief that had been around his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but folded together in a place by itself.
Tina?
Then went in also that other disciple which came first to the tomb, and he saw and believed. For as yet they knew not the scripture that he was rise again from the dead.
And read one more.
Then the disciples went away and again unto their own house.
Okay, so again, you're getting a picture here of what transpired. Now, guys, what's not a surprise to you with Peter? What's not a surprise to you with Peter?
He ran right into it too.
Well, I mean, so give me the picture of this. What happened first when they ran? What happened? Who got there first?
John outran him.
John outran him.
Yeah.
Okay, so John, and so when John gets there, what does John do?
He stops.
John's kind of looking in, you know, and seeing. What's Peter do?
Goes right into
I mean, that's typical Peter, right? Typical Peter. He's just going to go right on in there. What's that tell you about his personality?
fearless.
What's that? Bold. Bold? Unafraid? You know, he's the one that, how many times does he do things and then thinks about it later, right? You know, there could have been danger. Who knows, right? Yeah, that's pretty much right. And so he goes right on in there and looks around. Now, again, we learn a great lesson here. You know, we've talked a lot about our example. So what happened when Peter goes on in? What happens then?
Others follow.
Yeah. Again, you picture that, right? The guy sees Peter go right in. Well, then I'll go on in. You know, you lead the way. And I'm going to tell you something. Isn't that the way mankind usually is? You know, we just follow the leader, and sometimes somebody's got to take the charge. I mean, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here to make an application, but this is just history, so you got to allow me some leeway here. Yeah, and that's what sometimes happens. You need somebody to go ahead and be bold enough or brave enough, and then you follow along. That's not necessarily a bad thing for John, is it? I mean, if anything, it's kind of like support. You know, support, go in there. Now, something I want us to notice in this reading, what was their first reaction? What are they thinking has transpired? Did you pick up on it, Johnny?
That they had known Jesus, somebody had known Jesus.
Somebody, okay, let's get there. And yeah, verse 2, we're right there at the beginning. The other disciple whom Jesus loved said to them, see, and that kind of helps us picture what's going on, right? Because we said at the tomb, okay, who's there? Well, we got these ladies, right? And I don't know how many. There were others that were there. And of course, one of them goes over to Peter and John, and then they run back. Now, she's still over here. That much we know. Because she's going to come a little bit later, and they go in there, and of course, these people, John said to them. Did you pick up on that? So John says to them. So that kind of helps fill that little gap. You know, sometimes, you go over this and you miss little things, but I've been reading all this chronological stuff and different theories that people have. Maybe this happened first, and it can fry your brain. But that little statement there, he tells them that somebody has come and taken it. Janet.
Well, maybe I'm looking at it differently, because on verse 8 it says, then the other disciple, John, who came to the tomb first, went in also, and he saw and believed. I took that he believed that Christ had risen, because Christ had preached that.
Right. Now, because that gets us into part B of the question. I think there's a point there, but something happened. That's what I wanted you guys to pick up on. What changed from when John, let me get John here. What changed John from when he noticed this and he said to them, and then when he went inside, what changed? What could have convinced him?
Maybe he saw the folded napkin.
Absolutely.
If you're going to still body, you're not going to sit there and fold.
Right.
Yeah, you are not taking those wraps off.
Yeah.
Fold them up. Misty.
Are you referring to the said to them in verse 2? Because that was Mary that said that, not John.
Where are we? I want to make sure we get this, because I've read so much today. Okay, again, I guess that's why I started out early in the class by saying we weren't sure whether they had already left and gone back.
Yeah, in verse 2, so she ran and came
She
to them
ran.
and said to them.
That's right. Thank you, Misty. That's right. You got that. And then Peter went out, and the other disciple, and they both ran together. The disciple ran to Peter. Thank you.
Because the way the other passage reads, it sounds like she may have heard that, but may not have understood,
Possibly.
what was said. Because I think she may have been there for when
Good.
the other women were there, and then ran and got Peter.
Right. Okay. Thanks. I wanted to get the parallel passage in there that we had concerning that. Oh, there we go. It's over in Luke 24. Let's just pop over there, guys, so we get all the passages that deal with this. So let's get over to Luke 24. And Luke 24. And we've got the first 10 verses here. Let's see if we can see if there's anything different. Warren, we're going to start with you. We'll zigzag back, 2 apiece. Let's start verse 1.
Now, on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they and certain other women with them came to the tomb to bring into the spices which they had prepared. But they found the stone rolled away from the tomb.
Then they went in and did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. And it happened that they were greatly perplexed about this, that behold, 2 men stood by them in shining garments.
EJ, would you like to read 5 and 6?
Okay. And as they were afraid, they bowed down their heads to the earth. They said unto them, Why seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but he is risen. Remember how he spake to us when he was yet in Galilee?
And 7 says, the Son of Man must be delivered to the hands of sinful men. Yeah, we read this, but I want us to read more. And the third day rise again. 8 and 9, oh, you get your hands full, Misty.
And they remembered his words and returned from the tomb and reported all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. Now they were Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and also the other women with them were telling these things to the apostles.
Okay. And of course in verse 11, because it was on your question sheet how they reacted, and that was verse 11. And their words seemed to be idle tales, and they did not believe them. You know what's rather interesting, because we don't have question sheet number 16. You don't have them in your possession. But you remember when Jesus showed himself, I'm getting a little ahead of myself because we're coming back to what Misty was talking about.
We have 16.
Oh, you've got 16.
16 was part of this packet.
Was that the last one in that packet? Okay. Oh, good. All right. So you don't need that 16 that I ran off today. Good to know. It said John believed. But remember when Jesus showed himself or told the disciples, there was a lot of unbelief that was going on at that stage. He showed himself. They believed. There was a lot of doubt that was there. John, on the other hand, had believed and remembered, obviously, what Jesus has said and the fulfillment of it. What we're noticing here, I'm trying to get the timeline in here. It's really, okay, here we go. We got to finish it up. We were in John 20. We got down to about verse 11. So let's finish on, and then we'll just slow down and make some applications here. Let's go back to John chapter 20. And in verse 11, okay, we read verse 9 and 10, for as yet they did not know the scriptures that he must rise again from the dead, that the disciples went away again to their own homes. Now 11 through 18, Misty just read. Dan, I'm going to get you to read. Why don't you and Dustin handle this? It's 11 through 18, so read down to about verse 14. Read down to verse 14.
Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb. She saw 2 angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. They said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, They have taken away my Lord, and the not know where they had laid him. Having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing, and she did not know that it was Jesus.
Jesus said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Aramaic, Rabbi, which means teacher. Jesus said to her, Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, I have seen the Lord, and that he had said these things to her.
Okay, we're going to talk about this passage in just a moment. A lot of information that I have on this seems to say that what we're going to notice now is when Jesus was here for a whole week, there's just not a lot recorded what happened between this event and then later on the road to Emmaus and then coming back. There's a number of days that are in there. They're not recorded exactly what has transpired. Again, trying to paint this picture for us, seeing what we have here. So this is where I was telling you guys, where you had Peter and John go, and then you have, which seems to be, Mary coming back, and that's what we have here. But Mary stood out by the tomb weeping. Now remember, she was the one when she saw it, she first left. And now she's come back, and now she's weeping. As she wept, she stood down and looked into the tomb. Just kind of like, who did that?
Oh,
John did that, right? And then she saw two angels in white sitting at the head, the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain. They talked to her about this, and they want to know why she's weeping. And of course, they're saying, well, they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. Okay, and that ties into more what we were talking about earlier, Misty. Mary, at this stage, is somebody's taken the body. Okay, and she's upset about this. Now, one of the things that we haven't put in here, you know, I was trying to just focus on Jesus, but I believe it's over in Matthew. Do we not? I'm pretty sure. I'm going to go back there quickly to Matthew, because we have to fill in here where we started out with. I mean, we just can't pass over it. What did the chief priests and the Pharisees want? What did they want? They wanted secured, so there was guards there, right? And so wait a second here. We've passed over what happened to the guards, okay? And let's get there. I'm trying to make sure we get... Well, we got the end of chapter 27 of Matthew, where verse 64, therefore command that the tomb be made secure until the third day, lest the disciples come and take them away. And I want us to get, let me pop over to Mark. No, we want to get the guards, what happened to them. I mean, I know what happened to them. I just want us to read it. Do you guys remember what happened to the guards?
Yeah, Matthew 28 and 4.
28 and 4. The guards shook for fear of him because like a dead man. But the angel answered and said to the women, no, there's more than that. Let's go over to, I'm going to go to Mark's account. Okay. All right. Trying to get the, I don't know why I didn't write that down unless it's on the, I'm trying to get guys where the soldiers, they felt like dead, you know, they were there. Excuse me?
It is Matthew 28.
It is just Matthew 28. Okay. Because, Matthew 28. Do you guys remember what the Pharisees did with the soldiers? You guys recall that?
They paid them to tell them that the disciples took them during the night.
Okay.
That's Matthew 28 as well.
Yeah,
Further down,
move down there to verse about,
13 or so.
well, back up in 11. Back up in 11 it says, Now when they were going, behold, some of the guard came into the city and reported to the chief priests all the things that had happened. When they assembled with the elders and taken counsel, they gave a large sum of money to the soldiers, saying, Tell them his disciples came at night and stole him away while we slept. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we'll appease him and make you secure. So they took the money and did as they were instructed. And this saying is commonly reported among the Jews even to this day. And one of the points that we'll just make here, guys, and then we'll move on, because we haven't talked about this, all of this yet. What would it mean if the soldiers confessed that they fell asleep?
You ever sleep on the job?
What would that mean?
Death.
Death.
Yeah, they're goners. They're goners. But what were they promised? To lie. What were they promised?
They wouldn't be put to death, I guess.
Not only did they get a sum of money, but what would happen? What did they promise? I just want us to learn here how quickly people are willing to accept what people really don't have the power to do. Tony?
They told them to put the blame on the disciples, not yourself. That the
Okay.
disciples came. So all the blame was off of the soldiers and put onto the disciples.
And they'll be secure, is what it said.
Yeah, but how's Missy?
Basically, if the governor heard of this, we would make sure you're not in trouble.
Yeah, sure. Right. And of course, people do that all the time, right? They'll say, "Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. I'll take care of it." And these soldiers, you would think, first of all, why would you do that? And of course, money talks. You can do anything with money. And of course, they didn't want to get in trouble for what had transpired anyways. And the chief priests are going to great lengths here because they're hearing what has transpired. Were they hearing that somebody stole the body? I mean, is that what the chief priests and the Pharisees were hearing, that somebody stole the body? Well, they're not hearing it. That's what they want to believe, of course. They want to deny the fact. And of course, part of lesson number 16 is not only, with the resurrection, you're going to have to notice that people witnessed this. People were aware of this. And how are you going to keep that a secret? The resurrection, I knew before I even came to tonight's class this was going to be one of my hardest classes because I can't make a lot of application. Because it's just information, It is. It's like a history lesson. And I'm not good with history. But, we want to make application. But there's not a lot of application here other than trying to stretch some of this stuff and talk about, how people are quick to not believe. How many times did Jesus say he was going to resurrect on the third day? I mean, come on. How many times? And then you had the angels reminding them of what Jesus said, which tells us how many times do we have to be told. And then, of course, we're going to get back to this passage right now that Dustin and Dan read and talk about the conversation with Jesus. Okay, so let's just see if we can glean some things. And I'm not joking with you guys, seriously. I was at home going, what? How are we going to make application tonight?
I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that each of the authors had a different point they were trying to get through. And in Matthew, he's telling the story of what happened to the soldiers and to the great lengths that people would go to make sure that the outcome happened the way they wanted it to happen.
Sure.
So he glosses over all the people that were there, some of the middle stuff. So, it's not that there's things missing or didn't happen or conflict.
Right.
But the whole point from the very first verse all the way to verse 12, 13 is about these soldiers. I mean, they witnessed it. They saw the angel. They felt the earthquake.
Yeah, you guys talked about that last week. The earthquake that transpired. There's a lot of things that were going on. And so he was focusing on that. Then, of course, we get over to to John's account, and we're noticing more of the hands-on with the angels of noticing, that conversation, a couple of conversations, because those angels didn't just talk to Mary, did they? We noticed earlier on that he talked to the women, the other group that was there. They go and tell the apostles. And how did that go over?
You see both in Luke and in John that they didn't believe him.
They just like, no, this is idle talk. No, that really didn't transpire. Again, how many times did Jesus have to tell them that this was going to transpire? What did you expect? It kind of mind-boggling, but of course we know this happens all the time where people are just not, we say we walk by faith. I've done sermons on that. We say we walk by faith, I walk by faith until we have a hardship. Man, that's when you need to use it the most. And it's almost like, yeah, Jesus, we believe you until the time you were killed. We believed your words. But see, now you got to accept it and apply it. And I think this goes to show us about the kind of faith that you and I need. Would we have been the kind of people back then? I think there's an application I just thought of now. Where would we have been? Would we have been quick to believe, or we would have been doubting all along? I don't know. That's a question for all of us. But we find here that she's weeping, and we stopped in verse 13, and because she says somebody's taken the body. Verse 14, I'm over in John. I'm in John. Verse 15, and women, whom are you seeking? And she's supposing him to be the gardener. Okay, supposing to be, I don't know. This is weird.
So did he not look the same?
Well,
I mean, is it that way kind of...
What's your thoughts? I've got a couple of my own here.
Or he's not allowing her to see? Testing her
Now,
faith?
using them all up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's it. Okay, you've either got his appearance. I think it was more or less just preventing her, because you'll notice that with the guys on the Emmaus. It's like he hindered them from knowing exactly who he was. I love that. I love that sermon. I just love that, because especially when Jesus asks them what's going on, and they're kind of like, where have you been? This is big news. Everybody knows what's transpired. Okay. But yeah, so she, supposing him to be the gardener, said to him, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Mary, he's going to resurrect. Where are you going to take him? What are you thinking here? Well, I thought it was rather interesting here, and you guys probably picked up on it. In verse 16, she says to her, he says to her, Mary, what was it? Was it the way he said it?
He opened her eyes.
Opened her eyes. But you got to remember, if this is a gardener, are they like buds?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, it would be kind of interesting if a stranger walked in and said to me, Hey, Chuck, how do you know me? And there might have been something that too. What were you going to say, Tony?
She recognized his voice.
Could be.
Possible. Well, all we know for certain is at a certain point, she didn't think it was Jesus. Then, bang, it was. She recognized. See what it says. She turned and said to him, Rabbi, which is to say, teacher. So Jesus says to her, do not cling to me. What do you get from that? What's it imply? She won. Your first instinct, right? Miss me?
I was going to say either she's clinging to him physically, or it's a precursor of, I'm not here to stay.
Yeah, right. Whatever. But I love that. I love the love here. I love the joy. Any of you, if you've ever been apart from a loved one, no offense, but this hasn't been that long. But there are times 3 days is a long time from somebody. But here's Jesus, and she just wants to cling to him. And of course he tells her here, says, do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. Well, I'm thinking, well, yeah, if you ascend to the Father, I'm really not going to be able to cling to you. So I'm really not, it's like, no, I don't want that, not now. But go to my brethren and say to them, I have ascended, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. All right. This is crucial. Whenever you want to talk about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, we don't often mention it. But what do we have to link with the resurrection? We often talk about, well, what do we want to link with the death? Well, we want to link his, him being buried. And then we talk about his resurrection. But what do we need to make sure we connect with the resurrection? He did it here. His ascension. His ascension. That's what it was all about. Now, can you guys tell me why that is so important? Tell me why the ascension is so important. Think of sermons in the past. Why is the ascension so important?
We have that same hope to be ascended to the Father.
True. You're thinking of a number of points. I can think of a number of passages. Let's see if we can think of some of these. What's the benefit? Misty, give me one.
Well, in Hebrews, Jesus went into the holiest of holies. He went into the presence of God to intercede for us. If he doesn't ascend, he cannot intercede for us directly with God.
Okay, so we needed that advocate, okay? An advocate with the Father. And so he does that. Tony.
A new man.
Rise up, but you think about that baptism, but even in that illustration, it's like as Jesus was raised from the dead, we're raised from the dead. Think of John 14. In my Father's house are many mansions, but what did he say? Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. I must, what does he have to do? I have to go and prepare a place for you. And where I go, there you may be also. Okay? And so you think about how important the ascension is. And we're missing a real big one, guys. I hope you can get this one.
It's fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, and something specific that he mentioned. Remember, think of John chapter 14, 15, and 16. Ring a bell? Remember he wanted to comfort his followers by telling them...
Oh, there's going to be the Holy Spirit.
Yes, there's going to be another comforter. So in order for that comforter to come, what does he have to do?
He has to go.
He has to go away. He's going to go, and then he's going to send the comforter so that you will be what? Guided into all truth. See, it's all part of it. And so we want to make sure that people understand the whole package deal here. That when we talk about the death of Jesus, we're talking about his resurrection. And we're also talking about his ascension. And with that ascension, it wasn't right away because he was seen of man.
40 days.
When we get to Acts chapter 1, we'll talk about that. Because one of the lesson sheets you have there is his ascension. There's a lot that we can learn from that. The next few outlines that we actually have application. Unlike tonight, that I have been struggling all night to see if we can make some application here as Christians. So, with a couple minutes left here, let me see. Let's get back to see how far we got. Okay. I ascend to my Father. And then in verse 18, and Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord and that he had spoken these things to her. Small point, but what's interesting about that is she actually did exactly what the Lord told her to do, which is important. I mean, that's what it's all about. You listen to the Lord and you do it. How many of us would actually do things if the Lord personally spoke to us to make that separation? Okay? Yeah, I'm scraping, but I'm trying to get these lessons in here. Okay? And let me see. I think we did cover that one over in Luke 24. Now, you guys have your lesson sheet 16, right? Okay, since you have it, there we go. We're going to be in Luke 24. I don't know who's getting that next week, but we're going to talk about on the road to Emmaus. And there's just a lot of good stuff in there.
I do think it's interesting that in John 20, verse 9, there's been numerous accounts up to this point, like in Luke and John, where they didn't understand the scriptures, even though they were told that he was going to rise again. And I think it was interesting that even after that, when Jesus actually speaks to Mary, how patient he is with her, about even though she didn't understand. I think maybe that's a lesson for us, because sometimes when we think things are obvious, we're not patient.
It's a good point. It's true. And also, at the same token, I think that, when you get in Acts chapter 1 and they're wondering, Jesus, are you going to restore the kingdom of Israel again? They're still thinking physically. Dan?
Except, I don't know if you're off of that or not.
Yeah, well, it's enough.
Just something else that should verse 12. We think back, Mary comes in, she sees the angels, sees the two angels, and then turns around and rather than focusing on them, she's talking to the gardener. Always struck me as odd.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then, realizes it's Jesus. Nothing is said about the angels after, it's seeming like, she's, certain amount of symbolism there, right? That, whatever the angels are, Jesus is something, far greater than that. And we see that reflected in their actions.
And you have to appreciate that, but it kind of reminds me of Balak, talking to a donkey and just carrying on a conversation like it's an everyday thing. Like, where's the shock? And of course, when you see the angel, and then just immediately, I love that point of just, now you're talking to the gardener, because the priority, and there's the sermon, Dan. Our priorities, okay, nice, I'm looking for the Lord. I'm glad you're here, but I'm looking for the Lord. And you want people, wouldn't that make a good sermon? Are you looking for the Lord? Or are you going to get sidetracked by certain individuals who are going to talk about the Lord? She hadn't given up yet.
I would say you would think the angels would have been where he was at just as much as the gardener.
Inherently spiritual beings, you recognize that. You have the choice. Looking for Jesus, am I going to talk to these spiritual angels, or am I going to talk to who I think is the gardener?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And surprisingly enough, there are people who would sooner do that. People are quick to follow man, right? They're quick to follow man. But again, which makes for a good sermon, is that her wheels are turning because she's still thinking somebody took the body. And if anybody took the body, possibly the gardener took the body. Jan?
Well, and Mary along with Peter, their faith was tested here. And the disciples too, and they failed because they didn't believe.
Right. But, and again, as Missy said, but they were quick to turn around and then when they, to believe.
Right.
Because there are a lot of people, when they don't believe, they have no intention of believing.
Right.
You could put all kinds of evidence in front of them. But I just want to commend you guys. Thanks for bailing a guy out tonight who didn't know what kind of application he was going to make.
She had a job. That's another application. Absolutely. She wanted to get that taken care of, even though the body was gone. We took it, please let me know. Which is what she wanted to do. Right. I think that's the whole reason why she was so.
There was an urgency.
Yeah, there was an urgency. Because she knows the body would be decaying. That's right. Yes, sir.
Jack got 16. I know.
16 has more application.
Yeah.
More application.
I talked to Matt, he said, the other disciples, yeah. He said to him, John 21, he says, I write these things.
Good evening. Good crowd. Wednesday night. Go ahead and turn to 421. That would be the Song of Invitation. 421. We will be singing that in just a couple of minutes after Tony delivers us the invitation tonight. After you turn to 421, go ahead and flip back a few pages to 378. We will sing that. 378. A few more days. Just a few more days to be filled with praise and to tell the old story. Then when twilight falls and my Savior calls, I shall go to Him in glory. I'll exchange my cross for a starry crown, where the gates swing outward ever. At His feet I'll lay every burden down, and with Jesus reign forever. Just a few more years with their toil and due, and the journey will be ended. Then I'll be with Him where the tide of time with eternity is lifted. I'll exchange my cross for a starry crown, where the gates swing outward never. At His feet I'll lay every burden down, and with Jesus reign forever. Oh, the hills be steep and the valleys deep, with no flowers my way adorning. Though the night be long and my rest a slow, joy awaits me in the morning. I'll exchange my cross for a starry crown, where the gates swing outward never. At His feet I'll lay every burden down, and with Jesus reign forever. What a joy 'twill be when I wake to see Him for whom my heart is burning. Never more to sigh, never more to die, for that day my heart is yearning. I'll exchange my cross for a starry crown, where the gates swing outward never. At His feet I'll lay every burden down, and with Jesus reign forever.
Good evening. So I've got 8 minutes, so that won't be long enough. So it's good to be here. It's good to have the opportunity to speak. My lesson is in no way, shape, or form am I promoting something, and am I willing to say that this is a good thing? But I see a commercial and it's, I thought I could use that, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm not promoting gambling under no way, shape, or form. So, but the commercial says you have to play to win. I thought, yeah, that's right, you do. But it doesn't mean you have to gamble. So you know, so I looked at it and I thought, I'm a very competitive type person. I like playing, and recently we were in California and they had these cornhole boards. And I looked at them for a day and a half and I didn't play because I was busy. But the next day I played. And I was talking to our friend Tracy, and she was like, and I was like, Tracy, it doesn't matter if I'm playing checkers. I'm planning on winning. That's just me. So she says, so you really do have a problem with losing? And I'm like, I guess you could say that. So, but anyway, God's given us the playbook. He really has. Everything we need for our life to be successful, for us to be the way we should live. It's in the Bible. And it starts from the beginning all the way to the end. So I'm mesmerized why people struggle, with certain things, but yet the playbook is very accessible. And does that mean you're not going to have problems or you're not going to have rough days or bad days? Absolutely not. You're going to have them, and you're going to, it's sort of like Brian's lesson. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. You're going to have the really high moments and you're going to have the really low moments. But it sort of goes back to the faith thing. That's what we have, put our faith with God, and that's where we do it. So basically, I've written down several things here on how to play and win. So for husbands and wives, you can turn to Ephesians 5:22 through 33, and it talks about marriage. And in verse 25, it says, husbands, love your wife. So whenever I tell my wife I love her, and she says, yeah, because God tells you have to. So, and I hear that quite regularly. And then it talks about children, about parents raising your children. And in Proverbs it says, train up a child, and and that's the way he will go. So those are very, very important things for us to remember in our life, So turn to Acts 17. And we're going to read verse 11. These were more fair-minded than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness and searched the Scriptures daily to find out whether these things were true. So you can just imagine having this playbook that's going to get you through this life. And it's, we're here, but our time here on earth is but just a vapor. But yet everlasting life and eternity, the examples have been if you took every piece of sand and stacked it on top of each other, that would still not cover eternity. So we're here for a very short time. We have the playbook, and yet we can't understand the importance of how important the playbook is. So husbands and wives, love your wife. It talks about marriage, raising your children. But if we don't search the Scriptures daily, don't think the other things in this is going to work. You have to put your faith in that. So one of the first steps in it, of course, in Acts 2:38, turn over there real quick. And we all know the scripture well. It says, then Peter said to them, repent and let every one of you be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ for the remissions of sin, and you shall receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. So you've repented, now you're a Christian, you've been, you're in the church. You're in the body of Christ. So now what? Well, then in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, it talks about running the race. So let's turn over there real quick. It says, therefore we also, since are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. So we run the race. And then 1 Timothy chapter 6. In verse 12, it says, fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life, to which you are also called and have confessed the good confession in the presence of many witnesses. So you're going to have to run the race, and there's going to be those days where you have to fight. It's there. And of course, in winning, I'll finish in this. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. So that's the game, if you want to call it, and I'm not calling, it a game. Don't take it that away, it's your salvation is more than just a game. But sometimes we have to understand that what we're doing in this life, what is the most important part of it. So these are just a few things, but if you're willing to take this playbook, you can play to win. So if you have not obeyed the gospel, or if there's something that we can do tonight, to help you, and you need the prayers of the congregation, we ask that you come forward while we stand and sing.
121. I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore. Very deeply sank within, sinking to rise no more. But the master of the sea heard my despairing cry. From the waters lifted me, now safe am I. Love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me. All my heart to him I give, ever to him I cling. In his blessed presence live, ever his praises sing. Love so mighty and so true, merits my soul's best songs. Faithful, loving service to him belongs. Love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me. Souls in danger, look above. Jesus completely saves. He will lift you by his love out of the angry waves. He's the master of the sea, billows his will obey. He, your Savior, Midweek study. Thanks as always to the class teachers, everybody who was active and participating this evening. I know we've got the Friday class at the Barons at their new address. Don't cross the money-saving bridge. There's nothing worthwhile to see down there anymore. That address was emailed out a couple of days. If you haven't seen it yet, everybody should have it. Other things we need to make mention of tonight.
Mark's already gone down to the funeral, but Ellen is home not feeling well. That's where she is. Anything else we need to make mention of before we are dismissed? Okay, we got several members away from us, several traveling. We remember Tim, his travel. I see Matt's away from us as well tonight. Several others as well. So also Tina and Kelsey who took off Monday for their extended trip for the next couple of weeks. So lots to be praying for as always. Matt was listed for our closing prayer. He is not here tonight. Dave, can you word that for us and we'll be dismissed?
Let's bow. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful to you for the privilege that we have of being a part of the body of Christ. The Lord's family, dear Father, is something very special in our daily lives. We're so thankful for the privilege of coming together with fellow brethren each and every time that we're assembled. It's a special occasion, dear Father. It's just a small taste of what it will be like someday when you call us home. Pray for those, dear Father, that are traveling, that they have a safe trip to their destination and they might be able to return to us safely. We pray that you will continue to bless us in our efforts to reach out to those who are lost, seeking the truth as we once did. We pray, dear Father, that we will come in contact with them and be a good influence to help you do too when we still get time. Be with us as we depart from this place, and we pray that we, at the next appointed time, will return safely. Forgive us, dear Father, when we have sinned and fallen short. In Jesus' dear name we pray. Amen.
All right, boy.
Look at it, she just takes